Now, for a lot of us, you've been around the block a couple times. I know that LexisNexis isn't necessarily one that you maybe haven't not heard of, right? That's the thing. So you've most likely heard of it, right? So here's what they're going to monitor. They're going to monitor something called a clue report, right? The clue report is something that insurance companies are going to use both at a for residential and for auto to see how they're going to price you based off of the risk that you are or that you seem. So essentially what they do is if you've been arrested, if you've been in a car accident, if you something happened in your house, hurricane, like whatever that is, anything that's attached to your name, your shingle came off, like whatever it is, that's going to get attached to that clue report. Super important to know because this is what they're using to underwrite a lot of us, right? Really, all of us. They're also going to take a look at, this is when we start going more into the business side, business associations. So names of the businesses and where you're an officer in those businesses, as well as your title in those businesses. This is why, similar to, I'm not a big fan of co-signing for someone. Like, I'm a parent now. So I know that I'm going to have my opportunity to show my kids about credit if that system is still around, right? But if the system is still around, I'm going to pretty much help them out the same way that my parents helped me, right? Helping me out with some of the AUs, authorized users, helping them out if they need a co-signer to maybe get themselves into a real estate loan. They want to get into some real estate investing or to get their primary house, maybe co-signing on behalf of them so they can get their first vehicle. Like, we're parents. We get it. For those of us that maybe siblings, parents did it for us. We're doing it for our brother or sister, people that we trust. But here's the caveat behind that. And here's why I add that in there, comma, right? I add that in there because sometimes it ends up biting us in the butt when we co-sign for people that don't end up paying for the debt. We've seen it. Some of our own parents have done it to us. Some of our cousins have done it. Maybe we've done it to people unintentionally. We were down and out. I'm not here to judge. But I say that because you also want to be careful of who you go into business with. Because the business associations that you have, so let's say if your cousin or your ex was maybe the owner of the first entity. So let's say you guys started a maybe a Turo business together. Hey, let's do an LLC. We'll go 50-50 on the ownership. They're maybe the owner, and maybe you're the president, or maybe you're the CFO, like whatever it is that your title is in that business, that stuff is getting stored by LexisNexis. Super important to know. Real estate transactions and ownership data. I've talked about this before on podcasts. This was actually a really big soundbite, but I'll say on here again. So whenever you have like a foreclosure, or if you have an eviction that's been reported before, most likely they're gathering that data from LexisNexis. That's also gathering that data from public record. A lot of people don't know that. But again, if you follow me or Rad for some time, you definitely know that. Records, so this is liens, judgments, bankruptcies, all by LexisNexis. Professional licenses, previous addresses, that goes for business and personal, by the way. So they're capturing both of those. Phone records, so this goes for work, business, and personal. Background checks, again, if we've been arrested, we had a DUI, like whatever it is, not here to judge, just telling you what they're monitoring, public record information. This is also used to determine child support collections and enforce that. So they've teamed up with SageStream. So there was like a merger there. And so whatever information the SageStream algorithm had, they also have it now inside of LexisNexis, which, if you're wondering, before I go to this one, if you're wondering, the same way that you can dispute with the checks system, same way that you can dispute, which, by the way, I forgot to mention on here, it lasts up to 5 years when you're in the check system. And then from there, it's like the statute of limitations, it comes off. But you can, the same way that you can pull a report for EWS, the same way that you can pull a report for check system, is the same way that you can pull a report for LexisNexis. Remember, you're entitled to one free one every 12 months. You can dispute that information and get anything on it that's either dated or just erroneous, right? It shouldn't even be there to begin with, or just dated. Like, let's say you were arrested 18, whatever. I'm giving you like a crazy example. At 18, that was supposed to be expunged or come off of your record, but it's still there. You have the documentation to send that out. Like, hey, dude, like, this is holding me back from getting access to some funding. This is holding me back from being able to work with certain lenders that they're looking at me like high risk. You're going to want to get that removed. And so you're going to do that by obviously going below the surface of just looking at your credit reports, but taking a look at these secondary bureaus and these data furnishing companies as well. Telecheck. Rad, have you heard of Telecheck?
Never, bro.
So Telecheck is very simple with what they do. They are monitoring the transactions that you do in your business. And they're monitoring the checks that you write as well. And so if you've been writing checks that have been bouncing, or if you've been writing checks that maybe, I don't know, you wrote a check, it was, let's say, for $5K, and now your bank is at like $50, and it's like always like you're constantly hurting your bank rating. Remember what we spoke about last week? It's constantly bringing down your bank rating. Those little data points are getting sent back over to Telecheck. So they're monitoring the strength of the payments that you're making as a personal and as business, and they're also monitoring the checks that you're writing. And so this all ties back into, again, your bank rating, and it also ties into how they're grading you as an individual and how they're grading you, your business. Now, clean up this information, which is essentially the same way that we've kind of been talking about all up to this point. Pull a copy of any of these reports that's holding you back. You want to dispute any or all of this information that's, again, erroneous, incorrect, or just dated. Shouldn't be on there to begin with. You want to contact the bank and or the original creditor to have the information updated as well. So that's like a side step, like a little side bubble or like a side thought. You can also contact the bank or the creditor directly and say, hey, I don't owe you guys anything. Why is it still reporting? Right? So that's like a little side step that you can do. So that way they can then furnish that information over to LexisNexis, over to the check system. And that way you can kind of come out of that system. You can also pay the original or negotiated balances to have it removed. Sometimes banks, I've done it with Amex, they wouldn't negotiate in order to come out of jail. I had to pay the full amount that I owed when I went to collections with them, right? I had to do what I had to do to get back into the system. I had to do what I had to do to come out of checks. One of the ways that I did it was by paying for it, right? If that information was wrong, and let's say, hey, I don't owe you guys anything, I already paid $1,500, it's still reporting. Obviously, at that point, I would bring it up to LexisNexis. Obviously, at that point, I would bring it up to the bank, tell them, hey, I already paid for this. Because at that point, it's not fraudulent. At that point, it's factual, right? That's factual disputing. You can also wait for the record to drop. A little sidebar on that is that takes up to 5 years. But in the meantime, you guys can also check out second chance banks and fintech companies. Are you guys familiar with second chance banks? Let me know in the comments. And I'm sure a lot of us are, because a lot of us have messed around with banks like Chime. Have you ever spoken on second chance banking, bro?
Not yet. Not yet.
I'm surprised you haven't, bro.
To, though. I plan to.
I'll talk about it tonight for you. How's that sound?
I love it, man. Bro, you are dropping so much. Guys, are you guys enjoying the EWS, the LexisNexis, the check systems? I mean, I know you guys were wanting funding. We're still giving you the funding. But here's the thing.
Here's the thing, though. How do I say this? I talk a lot about fitness because I enjoy it. I'm not the most in shape guy, but I grew up playing baseball, sports, right? And so getting someone into shape isn't about getting them into the gym to lift for 45 minutes to an hour to get them in there and bust their ass. Getting someone into the shape is watching what they do the other 23 hours. So what's our sleep protocol? What's our nutrition like? Are we overeating or undereating? Are we staying hydrated? Are we getting vitamin D? What's our stress load like? Are we getting enough steps in when we're not sitting our butts in these desks, right? Coming off of the metaverse. The other 45 minutes is going to be way easier because the 45 minutes can't compensate for the other 23 hours. So that's right. like personal training 101. Right. I'll tell you right now, bro, if anything else hits the fan, bro, I'll just go into the freaking fitness influencer space. The reason why
how to make money on YouTube. I will get out of finance too. Listen, man, if it gets too crazy in finance, how to make money on YouTube, how to be a content. Bro, I'm
how to get in shape as a father of 4, how to get in shape as a busy business owner. We just start
it's so much easier to do that work instead of this work. This stuff, man, bro. Dude, when you're dealing with people's money, bro, that's no joke. Like, there's people out in these streets that are goons with it, man. Like, this is no joke. We're messing with people's money, bro.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I bring this up, because you said something that was interesting, because it was what I was thinking when I was preparing the presentation.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the funding part yet. The funding part is way easier once you figured out everything else. Meaning, if everything else is dialed in my day-to-day, I'm keeping my stress low, I'm staying hydrated, I'm not eating out every day, I'm cooking at home, I'm watching my calories, dude, the weight's gonna fly off. Or the other side of it is, if I'm trying to gain weight, obviously the more I eat, with the 45 minutes I spend at the gym, I'm going to add muscle way faster. I'm going to get in shape. And so I say all that to say is, when you have everything else on the back end that people aren't talking about dialed in, it makes, once you go to apply for the sequences that I'm going to give you, it's just going to, the funding is going to fly onto your file. And so that's why I'm setting it up the way that I am, because it's far more important when you have the actual mechanics versus just the flash in the pan.